Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
My name is Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters. And if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. I got a lot of new content on there, a lot of good content coming up in the future. Memberships start at $1. Check it out. Also, don't forget about my store. I got a lot of good merch on there. You know, Christmas is coming, so give it a check. So today, you know, a lot of people you know, I was looking through some old YouTube videos of people and, you know, friends of mine and not friends of mine, and you know, and a couple of them called me a junkie. You know, and I thought about the word, I thought about the meaning, and you know, people aren't born junkies. You know, junkies is a nasty word. You know, but you know, becoming a chemically dependent person or an alcoholic, for that matter, is a process. You know, it's the you know, it's the disease of addiction. Is, you know, it's ongoing. You know, and it's a process. You know, you don't become an addict in a day. You know what I mean? You know, so I'm just going to talk about my role in my journey into addiction and my journey out of addiction. You know, I'll try to put it all in like a nutshell. So you know, at 13, I'm in the street. You know, I found out about my father, that he was in the mob, and you know, it's in the '60s, and you know, there was a park across the street from my house called the 88th Street Park, and you know, I walked in there one day, and there was a couple of guys in there smoking weed. And they asked me if I wanted some, and I said yes. And I started smoking weed with them, and I liked it. I liked the way it made me feel. I liked, not only did I like the way it made me feel, I liked that it made me part of the crew, that it made me feel like I belonged to something, you know what I mean? Like a camaraderie, you know, with these guys that was smoking weed with. I felt accepted finally, you know what I mean? You know, and I started smoking weed. It's the '60s, you know. I knew my father now was in the mob, but I'm still in school, you know, and then you know, and all my attitudes started changing, but I didn't know at the time. You know, I started playing hooky from school. I started experimenting with other drugs. You know, it's the '60s. We started taking LSD and speed. I started sniffing glue, you know, playing hooky. You know, and it's all fun and games. You know, it's all fun and games. Nothing, you know, no, you know, there was addicts, heroin addicts in the neighborhood. They were the older generation. You know, they were all shooting dope. I didn't, you know, I wasn't into that. A couple of my friends, as I got older now, I'm 14, 15, 16. A couple of my friends, they started shooting dope. But, you know, I knew I had enough fear of my own man, and I wasn't willing to stick needles in my arm, you know, and I didn't go that route. A lot of my friends went that route. They're all dead now, from overdoses and from AIDS, because back then when the AIDS epidemic hit in the '70s, they all had AIDS. All of them, whole crews of my neighborhood got wiped out. So if I would have went that route, I wouldn't be here speaking to you people right now. I would have been dead. But anyway, so now, you know, it's the '60s. I'm experimenting with drugs. It's all fun and games. You know, no issues. 16, I leave school. We all know the story. I went to work for my father. Now I'm hanging out in bars. I'm drinking, even though I'm underage. You know, bar owners will let me drink in their bars because I'm Fat Andy's son, but I'm not. I still don't have no issues. I have no issues with alcohol. I have no issues with drugs. I'm making money. I'm in the street. I'm mobbed up now. You know, like I said, the junkies were the heroin addicts in the neighborhood. But I was, you know, still a recreational user. Um, and then in 1972, my father now befriends Jay Black and the Americans and Frankie Valli and all these entertainers, and they're coming in and out of my house. And I'm very, very close now with Jay Black. He took a real liking to me, and he's doing some shows. And he had a record chart, and I think he had This Magic Moment was charting still. It was like, I think, the last hit he ever had on the chart anyway. And he takes me to Puerto Rico with him. I'm 19 years old at the time. He takes me to Puerto Rico with him. He's doing some shows there at this hotel called the Flamboyant Hotel, which is, I don't think it's no longer open in Puerto Rico. And, he's a big celebrity. I'm in Puerto Rico now, living large. I'm 19. I got the keys to the city. I'm Fat Andy's son. I'm hanging out with celebrities. So the first night I'm there, he had a big suite. We go up to his suite before the show, and people are drinking wine and smoking weed, and he's singing opera to warm up his voice. It was cool the first night. The second night, the third night, I went up there, and I walked into his room, his suite, and I see a couple of guys around the table, and I walk up to the table, and there's a pile of white powder on the table. And I asked one of the guys, what is it? And he said, it's cocaine. He asked me if I wanted some. And now it's 1972. I've heard of cocaine. It's, the beautiful people were doing it. It was very, very expensive. So, only celebrities were doing it. Rich people in Manhattan were doing it. And of course I said yes. And he handed me a straw. And I fell in love. I loved it. I loved it. I took a few lines and, I just like when I smoked the reefer when I was 13, and I loved it. And I got back to New York, and I introduced it to a couple of friends of mine that I had to deal with, because one or two of them are dead now. They didn't know what cocaine was till I brought it around, but now it's 72. I'm Fat Andy's son. I'm a mob associate. I'm a criminal. Everybody in Manhattan's blowing coke. I mean, all the clubs, the Hippo is open. It's a big private club in Manhattan. The Fudge Factory, the Sanctuary, all these clubs, everybody's blowing coke. All the wise guys, the made guys, everybody was blowing coke in the 70s. And whoever says they didn't do it is full of shit, because everybody was doing it, everybody. But yet it still wasn't an issue. It wasn't an issue. And it's the progression of the disease of addiction. That's what they call it. It's a progressive disease. So now I'm headed down that road to addiction, but I don't know it at the time. I just think I'm partying. It's not an issue. It's recreational. I'm partying, but it's going from Friday and Saturday to Friday, Saturday and Sunday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But I'm not realizing that this progression is beginning, because I'm partying. I'm having a good time. I'm got pockets full of money. I'm going out with gorgeous girls. I'm going to the Copacabana. I'm blown. You know what I mean? I'm going to all these clubs. I'm not waiting online. I'm a prince. I'm the prince of the city right now. I'm running around with Arneil, somebody. Me and him are blowing coke. We're going out with models. But the progression of the disease has already taken place in my life, but I'm in denial of it. I go to jail in 78. I'm using in jail, recreational. I'm getting weed in jail. I'm getting volumes in jail. I'm taking volumes. I'm chilling out in my cell. I'm reading books. I'm smoking weed. I'm smoking cigarettes. Once in a while, I got an 8-ball of coke, and we would blow some coke in there. I didn't really like to use cocaine in there. So I'm in jail. I'm getting high for the whole 2.5 years. Still, the progression of the disease is rolling. I'm getting high with mob guys. You know what I mean? All the guys I hung out with in jail in the 70s were all associates, of the Genovese family. 1 or 2 wise guys were with us. We're all mobbed up. The whole crew of us are all mobbed up. We're all in our 20s, but we're all using. We're all smoking. I'm in Art to Kill. I'm getting, the correctional officers are bringing me weed every day. I'm getting buying. We're getting liquor in there. They're bringing us bottles of scotch, and But this is what we did. But the progression is moving on. But I'm still in denial of the progression of the disease of addiction. I get out of jail in 81. I get out of jail, in 1980. My old man's going back and forth to Florida. I get out. People are still blowing coke. It's the early 80s. I get out. I open up an after-hour club in South Ozone Park. I'm making money again. I'm in the street, and now it started to become a little bit of an issue. But I still don't understand that I'm headed towards addiction. It's just something we've been doing. It's something everybody's doing. Everybody I'm running around, it's just something we're doing. But I started doing more of it in Florida because in Florida, in the early 80s, a gram of coke was $40. But in Manhattan, or Queen Howard Beach, where I used to get my cocaine off a guy in Howard Beach, a gram of coke was $120. So there's a big difference in back then in the price. So now when I'm in Florida, I'm really blowing it up in Florida big time, and then I'm coming to New York and I'm just chilling out in New York, and the progression's still setting in, but I'm still mobbed up. P.S. Let's start wrapping it up. My father gets arrested in Florida in 84. Right before he gets arrested, I get introduced to freebase cocaine. And that's when the dark days started. I get introduced to freebase cocaine by a female. I heard about it, I read about it, and I wanted to try it. I got to be honest. I wanted to try it. I really wanted to try it because now I don't understand addiction. I'm saying that it's not me. To me, an addict was a heroin addict that would rob his mother, rob his sister, and I would never do that. But yet, so now I get introduced to freebase, and that's when everything changed. This was before crack. Crack wasn't even invented yet. We were freebasing cocaine. Richard Pryor, the comedian, had burnt up freebasing cocaine. And I start freebasing cocaine. And I'm freebasing cocaine with wise guys. Tommy DeSimone was Anthony Stabile. A lot of guys are freebasing cocaine. And now it starts getting crazy. Violence starts getting violent. And then I started doing things I said I would never do. Now I crossed over the line into addiction without even knowing it. I crossed over that line into addiction because of the progression of disease, all the years I'm using, and the progression. Now I stepped over that line, and now I have a drug problem, but I still don't understand I'm an addict, because to me an addict was a heroin guy that was shooting heroin. But yet now here I am, I'm doing the things I said I would never do. I'm stealing, I'm robbing everything, I'm just looking for the next one. It was all about using, but now, and I still got some street cred. Now I'm running around, I'm hanging out with killers. John Gotti becomes the boss. I'm doing business with Johnny Koenig with credit cards. He's a killer, but yet nobody's abusing me or nobody abused me. Nobody chased me. Nobody, everybody knew what I was up to. Everybody knew what I was doing. I was going back and forth to Florida, but I wasn't freebasing in Florida. But when I got back to New York, I would freebase. All my friends in New York were freebasing, and it got really crazy. And I would say from 84 to 88 were terrible years for me. I was living in Florida. I was living in hotel rooms. My father went on trial 3 times. I was living in hotel rooms. My son was born. I was living in hotel rooms with my wife, my son. I was doing a lot of drugs, a lot of coke, drinking a lot, but I still didn't understand about addiction. I still didn't know, I was an addict. So those were the worst years when in 88. And now I didn't know anything about recovery. I didn't know anything about how to get clean. I didn't know anything. I was losing weight. I was skin and bones. I wasn't eating. I was going on 5-6 day runs. Now I'm full blown coke addict. You know what I mean? I'm out there. Because of the progression of the disease from all the years of me using. This is where it took me. And I remember, I tell the story all the time. I remember there was commercials on TV back then about drugs and addiction, crack an egg in a frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. And and there was this one commercial of a nose. And under the nose, a plane went up the nose, and a house went up the nose, and a car went up the nose. And they said, this is cocaine. And they gave a phone number, 1-800-COCAINE. If you have a cocaine problem, call this number. And this is when I believe was my first God thing, if you want to say that, my first spiritual awakening, but I guess you could call it. So well, it was two things. I went to visit my father, and I was on a 3-day coke run. And I went to visit my father, and so now I'm an addict, and I'm a criminal. So this was the double-edged sword that I was living. So don't forget, now I'm still mobbed up all my life. I'm a criminal from 16 to that day. So I have no skills. I have no education. I have no skills except how to be a criminal. So anyway, I get up one day in 1988, and I look in the mirror, and I'm done. I'm done. I'm skin and bones. And I was in a lot of physical pain, and I knew that I was dying. I knew I was going to die. I knew that if I didn't stop, I was going to die. I just felt it. I felt, and I was, the fear of death overcame me. And I remember I walked out of my bathroom, and I sat on my bed, and I remember I was rocking back and forth, and I was going, oh God, how did this happen to me? And my wife, Alice, walked into the bedroom, and she got nervous, and she said, what's the matter? What's the matter? And I looked up at her, and I remember like clear as day. And I said to her, I'm dying, Alice, and I don't know what to do. Those were my exact words. I said, I'm dying, and I don't know what to do. And I was scared. I was very scared. And she says, well, what could I do? And that commercial saved my life. And I said to her, call 1-800-COCAINE. I didn't know what else to do, and she went to the kitchen phone, and she called up the number. And this woman that's still in touch with me today, named Joan DeBonzo, answered the phone. She was in recovery. She was a therapist, and she suggested I go to a treatment center in Vermont called Founders Hall. But I had no money. I had no insurance. So now my father was in jail. He had got sentenced to 40 years. I called up Tony Lee, his partner, Tony Lee. And I told him to come to my house. I needed to speak to him. And he loved me, Tony Lee. He was like my second father. And he came to the house by himself. And we were in my kitchen on 88th Street, and we're sitting down at the table, him, Alice, and myself. And I tell him, I got to go to this treatment center. I got to stop using these drugs. And he said, you bet your ass you got to stop using these drugs. If it wasn't for me and your father, you'd get shot in the fucking head. He told me. Because now I'm robbing everybody. Now all the things I said I wasn't going to do, I'm doing. I'm taking money off wise guys. I'm not paying them. I mean, I'm a renegade now. I don't give a fuck. I says, well, I got to. I said, well, I got this. I got a bed in this treatment center. It's $250 a day. I got to stay at least 21 days. I got to make a commitment for at least 21 days. So I remember he used to call me Sonny. That was like his pet name for me. Sonny, he used to call me. I remember he got up from the kitchen table and he looked at me and he said to me, I'm going to pay this, but as far as I'm concerned, you're too far gone. He told me, those were his exact words. And I said, well, I have to try. And he paid. He saved my life. And I went to this treatment center in Vermont, and they brought me to my first NA meeting, my first 12-step meeting. And when I was in the meeting, I heard the literature being read, and I identified with the literature. And I knew at that point I was an addict. When I heard the literature, who's an addict, how it works, I heard this one sentence, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that was the biography of my life. Once I took one hit, I was off to the races, and 1,000 was never enough. And I got clean. But now, getting clean, it wasn't really enough for me because now I had no skills. So I get clean. John Gotti's the boss, and we all know the story. I got out of treatment. He bought me a car. He gave me money. Now I'm back at it. I got my cred back. I'm clean. I'm looking good. I'm putting on weight. I'm making money. I'm buying $1,000 suits. I get I get remarried. I have a daughter. I'm making crazy money. And I'm living large again. And then we all know what happened. I got arrested and went to prison. And now here I am. But so junkie is like a nasty word. Nobody wants to become a junkie. Drugs make people do things that make drugs turn people into people they're not really on. I believe that a lot of addicts, a lot of people in recovery were good people that did bad things. You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to. But if I could get clean, anybody can get clean. And watch out. It's not all fun and games.
1 gram of cocaine costs as much as a boombox. 3 grams of cocaine costs as much as a TV. 7 grams, a trip to Paris. 1 gram a week for a year, a new car. If you're on coke, everything you work for is disappearing. Right under your nose.
How did you get coke in jail?
I got a friend of mine went out on back then they used to give you furloughs. Some people were eligible for furloughs, and this guy that hung out with us had a 7-day furlough, and he went out there and he met my brother, and my brother gave him an 8-ball and he smuggled it back in with him.
So what? You're blasted in a cell. I would lose my mind in it.
It wasn't a cell. We were in rooms. God to Kill was a medium security, so it wasn't cells. It was rooms. I was in a 4-man room. I was in a 4-man room with 3 murderers. Guys used to tell me, "How do you sleep in that room at night?"
And you're banging out an 8-ball.
8-ball. Yeah. I didn't really like it. That's why I only did it once in jail. I like to smoke weed in jail and take volumes. That's what I used to like to do. I used to like to take a volume and then smoke a joint and just chill out. And I was in La La Land. That's what I liked. When I used, I was on. I was in jail 4 times. I only used the first time I was there. The rest of the times I went to jail, I was in recovery. I was clean. I never used.
What was the address of the After Hours Club in South Ozone Park?
It was on 126th Street and 101st Avenue. I don't remember the exact address. I was partners with, there was 4 of us. My brother Albert, myself, this guy Mike DeVito, and Carl Amato. All 3 of them unfortunately passed away. But we opened it up as soon as I came home from prison. It was really a nice after hours. We had blackjack tables in the back. I had slot machines. It was booming. It was a great spot.
So, like on a busy night, what were you walking away with back then? Do you remember?
Oh, on a busy night with the slot machines and the blackjack table, we would ring out maybe 5,000-6,000 on a Friday night.
And then 28 grand for rehab back in that day. That was a big chunk of change for Tony Lee.
Yeah, $2,500, $250 a day. I was there for 21 days. Yeah, it was a lot of money. It was a private rehab in Vermont. It's closed now. It was called Founders Hall. It was on the top floor of a hospital in St. Johnsbury, Vermont.
Did Mike Tyson sell his soul?
That fight last night, I just, everything I'm reading about it, I'm seeing on TV, it was a joke. Come on, the guy's 58 years old. I mean, if he cold cocks you, he's going to knock you out. I mean, I'm 71. If I cold cock you, I'm going to drop you. You know what I mean? You're never going to, you don't lose that. You know what I mean? But come on, you can't. That's a whole different thing, getting in a ring to fight like that against a 27-year-old kid. Come on. They robbed all the money. That was a Broadway play. All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Reform Gangsters. Don't forget, if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Check out my Patreon. A lot of good content. Memberships start at $1. And also check out my store. Christmas is coming. I got a lot of good merch on there. Thanks for tuning in.